Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. You have tuned into episode number 575 of the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. This is Linux in the Ham Shack. And this is our Weekender edition, the 128th of these Weekender editions, where we do a random topic selected by the picker wheel, and then we dive into hedonism and all the things that make life worth living. But before we get to any of that, we will go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
I'm Cheryl, W5MOO.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, so we've got some hedonism topics queued up for a little bit later in the show, and we've got the picker wheel loaded up with random topics to choose from. So I'm going to push the button and see if it's just as good as it was last time around, and actually play all its juicy audio, and then we'll see what it comes up with that we're going to talk about tonight. So here we go. Well, it was I see what's causing the hiccups. It's when it reloads ads. That's when it. That's when it.
Your ad blocker working.
Yeah, I don't have that on this computer, but it picked a topic that I want to say we've talked about before, and I thought they got rid of all of those. But did we talk about the best desktop environment or window manager? I feel like we did.
I don't think we specifically did.
Okay. I feel like this is a topic we may have touched on before, but it's apparently come up again, probably a user-contributed topic or listener, and I guess that's what we're talking about tonight then. I'm not going to go first this time. Someone else can tell me what their favorite window manager or desktop environment is, because I'm going to have to think about this for a second. I know the ones I use, but I'm not sure I would consider them the best just because I use them. So
yeah, that's the thing with the window managers. There's like, it's highly opinionated of what you want to use and what you are using and how you use it. I'm currently using Budgie on mine, which is totally different, I guess. But it's the old GTK feel of GTK 2 days and 3 days, perhaps. Is it the best? I don't know. It's non-obtrusive. It has its own little set of quirks. Like the notification muting doesn't always stay between sessions, because I'd rather just not have notification settings. And I'm sure I can probably set that up in a conf file somewhere, but I've never done that, and I just like to be lazy on that. I use KDE on 2 other machines, and, they're pseudo my daily drivers for Linux, but I don't really care for KDE that much. But again, that's opinionated. I go with GNOME, and I've used Dash to Dock and Caffeine for keeping the screensaver from going on when I'm doing stuff that I don't want the screen to go blank on. I like GNOME for the most part. It's fairly unobtrusive. Everything gets out of your way. It works well for my particular workflow. Is it the best? Nah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there is a best. I think it's the best one that you can choose for your workflow and what you're doing and how you want your desktop to look. I mean, some people like a lot of custom widgets and crap on the desktop, and almost all of them can do that. But I have all that stuff turned off because it's obnoxious. And I have no icons on my desktop either. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there actually is a best. I mean, we've obviously picked XFCE as sort of a nice lightweight one for the LHS distro. So that one I think is in that light family of if you want a more Windows old, like Windows XP like experience, it kind of gives you that start menu on the bottom left with a menu when you click it. Very much like Cinnamon does the same exact thing. Mate again does the same thing, but you can configure almost all of those to not even look like that. So I don't know if there's actually a specific reason beyond just aesthetics to care about your window manager.
I think part of this may be like the addressing of window managers as opposed to desktop environments, because a lot of people are into like tiling window managers and things like that, and stuff that's lighter weight than a full-blown desktop environment like, Plasma and GNOME and all of that stuff. But I tend to use the full-blown stuff. I think you're right about XFCE and probably LXDE for lighter weight environments. Those are all really useful. But I've noticed, I think in desktop environment world, there's kind of a convergence where everybody's trying to make things look and feel kind of similar to one another. There aren't a lot of things that make one stand out over another these days. Someone might have a different opinion about that, but it seems like they all have panels, docks, icon placements, your launchers, your clocks, your desktop switchers, things like that. They all seem to be pretty similar. That being said, I use Plasma and I use GNOME pretty much exclusively. Cheryl's kind of been forced to use Budgie because that's why it's called for her. So I don't know if she would prefer something else, but she's using Budgie now. I don't think the desktop is giving her any issues. She sometimes gets locked out, and I'm not sure if that lockout is something to do with Budgie or something else.
I think the lockout is actually the computer. I don't think it's Budgie. I think it's the computer.
And it could very well be.
Maybe not. I don't know. I haven't tried it on Windows, but no. So, and yeah, I don't hardly ever use my desktop computer. 99% of what I do is via phone. So,
so your favorite desktop environment is Android?
Android.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
The Samsung environment, right?
The Samsung environment, yeah. Which Russ hates, but
yeah,
he's an iPhone user, so.
Yeah. Well, is Android a desktop environment, or does Android, do they specify that it is somehow different, the underlying operating system from the desktop environment, or is it all just monolithic?
Well, I mean, there's the windowing manager, and that's how people can do skinning and everything else and create their own instance of the window manager for the phone. That's why Samsung has a different experience than actually a vanilla Google experience versus whatever, all those other mods that you can build a desktop for. No, not desktop, but like your phone windowing manager and stuff like that. There's a lot of customizations I guess you could do with that. OnePlus has their own sort of way to do window management. But I guess that's getting a little off topic. I think like the biggest thing with the window managers and desktop environments for Linux is how well, when you have a customized theme, how well applications from, let's say, app images, Flatpaks, and snaps also properly use the theme. So they don't look like they're applications that are just installed, and they look like completely different. They have different window, minimize, maximize, and stuff like that. So I think like compatibility kind of also is a fairly important piece to at least the look and feel and aesthetics. And if you're just using a tiling window manager that has no like top bars and window frames and stuff like that, then I guess that doesn't matter at all because they all look the same. But if you use a traditional window manager, you do have that stuff.
Doesn't the compatibility with the current desktop environment and the underlying toolkits depend on the developer, not the theme or not the environment?
It depends. If it's like a GTK app underneath, it should allow that. It should allow the skinning to occur properly as long as the GTK stuff is actually set up.
Yeah, but
same thing with Qt stuff.
Wouldn't that be something that the developer has to leverage rather than it just happening? Or do you feel like the desktop environment provides the tools and it should just work?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the desktop environment handles the rendering side of the application.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, that would make sense to me. I don't think it spins up like a, frame buffer for the window.
I don't do a lot of desktop environment design or application development, so I can't really speak to that, but sure. I mean, I guess if you're using GTK in your application, that, it should work as expected if you're on a GTK based desktop, certainly.
Right, like the font sizes and font shapes and stuff like that of the header bar that's in your window should be current with your theme. I think that's probably a minimum viability for compatibility.
All right. Yeah. Well, obviously we're had some decent discussion, but I don't think I'm not sure we can actually answer the question. Of course, what is the best? I know I've heard a lot of people suggest what they think are the bests. Pop OS,
Cosmic
desktop,
yeah, that's Cosmic desktop.
Yeah, Cosmic Desktop comes up a lot. And what's the desktop environment that's the default for Elementary?
I believe it's called Pantheon, if I'm correct.
Okay, I hear lots of kudos about those two as far as desktop environments, but aren't they just basically like rips or forks or something of something else?
Well, I don't want to be mean, but they appear to be, yes.
Just highly customized versions of a different desktop environment. Yes.
Yeah, in fact, Mate has a Pantheon emulator, so it can look just like Elementary OS if you have Mate. So that's been around for a long time, though. I still think like the font smoothing and like the UI smoothing and everything else inside of Elementary OS, is amazing. It really looks really nice. It's very well polished.
Yeah, I have to say, I had the same reservations you do about Plasma from the early days of KDE, but I know using it on top of Manjaro lately, I really do like it. I think it looks really good, and a little bit of icon and theme customization to it makes it look really good. And then, of course, just the basic functionality of the environment itself is good. And it seems to hold together really well for me. So I am sort of a convert to Plasma these days from the way it used to be.
I think it's very flexible, meaning you can edit just about everything on it, and getting to the editor is quite easy, and it saves across sessions and everything else quite nicely. And I've been running Garuda Linux on my one of my gaming boxes here. And it's went through like a iteration of where, KDE updated the theme for Dragonized Garuda was not ready yet. So like it sort of broke, but then they fixed it, and then it sort of repatched the theme and stuff like that. That was an interesting time to kind of see stuff sort of fall apart and how they had to make changes from the distribution side in order to maintain their thought of what the look and feel should be for that product, considering like the underlying, there must have been a lot of deprecations that occurred between the versions because literally broke everything for a short bit. I mean, you could still use the system. It was just something, you could definitely tell something was not quite right with the UI. It was really goofy. And then when they patched it, it kind of had a different look and feel completely. I don't know what that says about KDE, but it's nice to see that that all works. And I don't have anything turned on fancy on that box either. It literally is just the base stuff, like no extra stuff hanging on the desktop, no containers or anything else that you can obviously do. I mean, from the old days, I remember when they used to put a container on the desktop right away, and that just used to piss me off so much. I'd have to go through and get rid of all the garbage that they would put on the Plasma desktop. It's probably before it was even called Plasma. It's probably just KDE back then.
Yeah. So one thing I will say is, at least in my mind, when a distribution comes out with a customized desktop environment, it may be based on an existing popular desktop environment, but they usually put some thought into the design and the reason they make the changes they make to the default desktop environments. So the designers actually think about the utilitarianism and the accessibility and the look and feel of the desktop environments. The ones that have customized ones might be tailored experiences and therefore might be better than a stock one. But generally the stock ones are pretty good too. So I don't know. I don't know if having a customized desktop makes it better. And I really don't think we're going to answer the question which one is best for sure.
Well, I think if you have like in that case, if you have a highly customized desktop where you have like custom skinning and everything else on top of an existing architecture, it does become somewhat harder to support as things upgrade underneath of it. And I mean, that was quite apparent. So something like we looked at last week, the Makulu Linux Lindows thing, that was, a slight abomination. But it had a Cinnamon desktop that has been, highly customized for their use. And I mean, aesthetically, maybe some people would find that pleasing. I don't know, like, what kind of, breakery that's going to cause downstream as like Cinnamon updates and stuff like that. Whether they've, chosen a deprecated path or anything else like that they would be concerned with moving forward with somebody upgrading or turning their system into a testing machine and, breaking their UI or something like that. So that's always a possibility when you get to those things. I mean, I do like kind of using baseline environments. That way, I can make the customizations myself and I don't have to worry about because I realize the stuff I do is probably so minimal that it won't have an impact on an upgrade.
Well, so I think for, like, we've mentioned a few desktop environments, and for the base ones like Budgie and Ubuntu and Plasma, and the lighter weight ones, LXDE and XFCE, I think any of those are a good choice. I mean, certainly we can't say which one is the best choice. However, because in the Linux world, the desktop environment or the window manager, whether there's an underlying window manager or whether you're just using a window manager as a desktop environment, you can do any of those regardless of the distribution that you're using. So it may be harder to install a desktop environment on a different distribution, although the meta packages are usually pretty good. So you can always find the one that fits you best, regardless of whether you're using Elementary or Garuda or whatever. And then that way your workflow is consistent, even if you choose to use a different underlying system. So I guess the best one is the one you like to use the way you like to use it.
Yeah, I think that is the answer.
Good. So we spent 15 minutes talking about nothing.
Sounds like normal.
Yeah. And that's our show.
Boom. Tip your waitresses.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, unless anyone in the chat room has anything to add to our discussion, which of course you can do throughout the rest of the show. You don't have to do it right this second. Or unless Cheryl has anything she wants to contribute. I see she's muted, so she's probably like browsing Facebook or something.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not browsing Facebook. I was actually browsing the interwebs for Android desktop stuff. So just to see what was out there. And actually, I found several different things that's kind of interesting. Like 3 days ago, Google's working on a new desktop mode for Android 16 that could rival Samsung DX.
Actually, we talked about that last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So Android has long had a nascent desktop mode as far back as Android 10, but you've got to dig around to find it because it's under the developer settings. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff here. So,
well, so your phone might have a new look here soon.
Yeah, maybe. So, yippee! Yet something else to figure out. So,
like Jared just came in and said, "Greatest part about Linux is the freedom to have a horrible desktop if you wanted to."
Yeah,
if you want to.
Well,
you can even have no desktop at all.
Yeah, you got
right.
a console.
The thing is, everybody, Russ and I have discussed this with other things that get reviews. And what one person may think is the greatest thing since sliced bread, somebody else may hate. So it's a case of, maybe starting with somebody that someone suggested and then working, you may hate that. So you just kind of work your way through the list of other things to try, so.
Yeah, the thing about that is you definitely have to work through the list if you're trying to find something that really works for you, because if you don't test things, you have no idea what you don't know about the things you haven't tried.
Right.
So, yeah, you just have to kind of go through and do if you want a customized experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joking.
Yeah, I was like, and Bill's dying, so
Went
Well,
down the
then
wrong
we
pipe.
better get through the end of the show then before Bill keels over.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, if anybody else wants to comment about desktop environments as the show goes on, feel free to do so. But in the meantime, we're going to move into segment 2, which is hedonism. And of course, we always start with food because, right about now, we're probably all hungry anyway. And if you're not, you will be soon. So, Cheryl, what can someone eat if they happen to be hungry right now?
Well, this week we're going to talk about easy focaccia bread. And focaccia is one of those breads that's delicious, simple, and very forgiving. And if you're feeling artistic, you can use it as a canvas for edible artwork using green onions, garlic, carrots, red onion, peppers, edible flowers, whatever you want to make a cute little picture on top of your dough before you cut into it, or before you bake it and then cut into it. So for this, you need flour, salt, olive oil, instant yeast, warm water, rosemary leaves, and some sea salt. So, and of course, it's super easy to do. You just need some time for your yeast to work. And when making focaccia, you can add herbs, sea salt, olives, cherry tomatoes, red onion, garlic, parmesan, onions, peppers, whatever you want. So just be creative. So, but the recipe will be in the show notes. And then for our mixed drink corner, I picked the Dogwood Punch, which I forgot to type that out. And the dogwood is the Missouri state tree. And every spring, Russ probably gets annoyed at me because I'm constantly pointing at trees going, dogwood, 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 because I love them. So, but this cocktail is very springy. It's very simple to make. And of course, don't let spring stop you with it, because it can easily roll right into the summer. So, and for this, you need some sparkling rosé wine, strawberry lemonade, grenadine, lemon, some sliced strawberries, and some mint sprigs to garnish it. So, and the rest of the recipe, of course, will be in the show notes.
Sounds very frou-frou.
It is very frou-frou. Yeah, a lot of people said that it was extremely sweet. This is not something I've tried, obviously. Lots of people said it was very sweet. If you don't want it alcoholic, just replace sparkling water. Somebody said, "Oh, I'll just use 7-Up instead of the sparkling rosé," and everybody's like, "Oh no, don't do that. That's like instant cavities. Just use sparkling water or something because it's extremely sweet with the lemonade and the grenadine and the strawberries." So yeah, if you don't want an alcoholic drink, just substitute sparkling water. Otherwise, dump that bottle of sparkling rosé in there and enjoy. So,
all right, very good. It's almost like a mimosa,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So,
or a sangria.
Sangria.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
All right, very good. Well, I'm going to do another in my very short list of almost bottom shelf whiskey reviews. This is pretty close to bottom shelf, so, and the last one was as well. I don't know that like it's on the floor, but it's close. This is Jack Daniel's Bottled in Bond Tennessee whiskey. And if you didn't know that Jack Daniel's is actually putting stuff out other than Old Number 7, now you do. I think I have reviewed already the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof, which, by the way, is quite good. The Bottled in Bond is not quite as good. It's also considerably less money. So commensurate with its not quite as goodness, it is cheaper. So this I got slightly edited from Jack Daniel's themselves. Jack Daniel's Bonded is created from specially selected barrels for this final blend. They say in the ad that they specifically selected barrels that had darker liquor, not necessarily better liquor, but they wanted it to look darker in the glass. And so they chose certain things. The search was on throughout the warehouses for their boldness and depth of color. Sure, whatever. The result is Jack Daniel's Bonded, which emerged as the distillery's 2022 Whiskey of the Year. Now, they say it's the 2022 Whiskey of the Year. I think they called it for themselves. I don't think it won an actual award. Like all bonded whiskeys, Jack Daniel's Bonded was produced in one distilling season, aged for a minimum of 4 years, and bottled at 50%, because that's what bottled and bond means. It's one with depth of character, offering a host of flavors that marry well. Jack Daniel's Bonded isn't entirely new, however, as it's been available in the global travel retail market, i.e. you could buy it at airports for the last several years, but now it's on shelves everywhere. So I actually found a mash bill for Jack Daniel's. I didn't realize they published that stuff, but they do. It's 80% corn, 12% malted barley, and 8% rye. So I guess you would call it a low rye bourbon. And for all those people who are going, no, it's not a bourbon. Yes, it absolutely is a bourbon. Tennessee whiskeys are bourbon, or at least this one is. So there you go. It, of course, comes from Lynchburg, Tennessee. Everybody knows where Old Number 7 is. It's 100 proof. The color on it is dark mahogany. The nose on it is actually pretty pleasing. It's a little bit acerbic, but it's not too bad. It has notes of caramel, cherry, oak, dried herbs, and banana. And to me, a little bit of peanut as well. The taste on it has some similar notes: brown sugar, honey, peanuts, cooked dark fruit, dark chocolate, and of course, barrel spice. And it ends on a warming note of baking spice, caramel, and a hint of smoke, they say. To me, it's more of salty than smoky, but take that for what you will. It's going to be different for everybody. Is it better than Jack Daniel's Old Number 7? Yes, it is. Is it $10 a bottle better? Maybe. The best thing about it is the extra 10% alcohol. So but I think that's what you're paying for with the extra $10. I mean, I've been drinking it straight today, and you certainly can do that. It makes a much better mixer, because all of those things that you make with Jack, if you made it with this, would just be stronger and therefore better. Because the notes are pretty similar, honestly. It's not more refined or anything like that. If you want a refined Jack Daniel's, go to Gentleman Jack or Single Barrel Proof. That's where those are. But this is certainly not terrible, and I mean it's a solid 82, and it's good enough that you could sip it if you wanted to. For $30, I can tell you 10 different things off the top of my head right now that are better. So, it is what it is, but it's certainly a step above Black Label Jack Daniel's for sure. And if you want to try it, it is certainly everywhere, and it's not much money. You won't be mad that you bought it. You probably just go, well, I'll just buy Black Label next time and save myself $8. So, yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much it for Jack Daniel's Bottled and Bond Tennessee whiskey. So, on to you, Bill.
Have you done Evan Williams small batch yet for a bottom shelf one?
If I've done the bottom shelf one or not.
Yeah, I actually like that one. That one's a pretty good bottom shelfer.
I keep that in stock just as a mixer. So
really?
I don't know if I drink it, but
yeah, that is what it is. Well, I did. I talked a little bit about this acquisition. I think probably when we were doing a cigar smoke versus the actual podcast, but I have a bottle of Willet straight rye whiskey. You can always tell I'm already drinking it. It's a family estate bottled small batch rye. It's aged in hand-selected white oak for 4 years, bottled at cask strength. So this particular bottle is 109.6 proof, so that's 54.8% ABV. And I think it runs somewhere between like 60 and whatever, $1 billion, because state rules and laws and where you buy it and stuff like that. But I think you can get it for around like $59 or something like that. But it is, I started drinking it at the beginning of the podcast, and it's really good now. But the first sip was a bit spicy, but then everything kind of settled in, and it's quite nice. It's got a nice spice to it. It's not quite as good as the Rossville Union that we like to compare things against, but man, it's definitely it's definitely knocking on the door on the bottom side of that rating. So I would say if you can find this at a decent price, it would probably be a good acquisition.
Yep, I have a bottle of the family estate, and it's definitely quite good for a rye, and as you said, definitely not near Rossville Union. Although I'm going to have to split my ratings on ryes at this point between Rossville Union and Sagamore Spirit, because they're two very different ryes, and you can't compare like all ryes against Rossville Union, especially if they're Maryland style. So
Yeah, the Sagamore tastes completely different.
yeah, it is completely different, but also very, very good. It's a rye for people who don't drink rye. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would say that, but it's definitely different. It's a different experience. I don't know if you could classify them in the same grouping for sure. But I would still prefer a Rossville Union over a Sagamore.
Oh, that's interesting, because I think they're equivalent to each other in goodness, just completely different in profile.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, I would have to taste more Maryland ryes, I guess.
And that's totally fair. So let's work on that for Hamvention.
Yeah, detour.
All right, very good. Well, that brings us down to the end of our content for tonight. We do have some new subscribers, and we'll get to those in this. No, not subscribers, but we have social media followers we'll get to, and let Cheryl handle that. She'll have a very, very small part because I was very late in getting out the last episode. But we do want to let people know that, Hamvention is coming up, and it's a rather expensive endeavor. So if anybody wants to help us out a little bit by subscribing via Patreon, PayPal, or buying some merch, that would be great. And otherwise, if you have show topics that you want to have us talk about on these here weekenders, we would appreciate those as well. And if you just want to participate by being a listener, feel free to do that as well. We appreciate all of our listeners. And of course, you can even be a free Patreon now if you want to. You can just put yourself on the list over there, and you'll know when episodes come out. And then if you decide you want to throw $2 at us every month, you can just upgrade your membership, and you're already a member. So with that, we'll go ahead and let Cheryl go through our very, very short list of new subscriber supporters and live participants, and then we'll let you get back to whatever it was you're doing.
I would like to add to your supporting the show thing. We're not doing a GoFundMe this year, at least not at this point. I don't think we are planning on doing it. But if you want to shoot us $10 on PayPal to help us out for Hamvention, we wouldn't complain. So
or as many people do, just go to Hamvention and put $5 in our jar.
In our box,
there.
yeah.
That works too.
Yeah,
if you can't squeeze those bottles of scotch in the box, you hand them to us. We'll just put them on the counter.
We'll figure out what to do with it. I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take those kind of donations too.
Yeah. We've had a box under the table for things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, we have a special place for that.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So for our new subscribers, supporters, and live participants, this week we did not have any subscribers or Patreons, no free Patreons, no Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram, but on Mastodon, we had Francisco de la Pina join us. Nobody on Blue Sky, nobody on the mailing list. On Discord, we had Programmer Dave and Alara Marine, excuse me. No one on YouTube. And in the live chat, we have Woody, KC1VOP, Tony, K4XSS, Jared, W7AQB, and John, KB1BTZ.
One extra B there. K1BTZ.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
That's quite all right.
I get ahead of myself.
No problem. We have crested 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Woohoo!
Doesn't mean anything at all, but there it is.
It's an achievement.
It is some kind of achievement. Yes, absolutely. Oh, and if Darren is listening, VK60K, and Steve is coming to the Flex booth again this year, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Yeah. We'll make it worth your while if something should happen to show up. But
yeah,
have something ready to go back, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, we've already discussed that. So.
All right. Well, that brings us down to the end of the show. So thanks everybody for listening to this edition of The Weekender. We really appreciate each and every one of you. We hope to see you all at Hamvention, which is coming up really, really quick now. It's only 2 months away. We're all ready to go. And I guess we should do the announcement that we are in a new location. No one knows very few people know about this yet.
Yeah, I heard about it a couple of days ago. So,
Yep. So instead of being in the Hertz building in booth 5004, which is where we used to be and have been for many years now, we were lucky enough to get moved into building 2. We will be adjacent to the K2BSA's booth, which will help Bill out and us out both. So those booth numbers are, we are in 2206 and the K2BSA is in 2205. So we are basically, we will be facing Begali, and we will of course be along that same hallway with Flex and ICOM America. So if you can't find us, I don't know what your problem is.
Yes.
We will be where most of the people are this time. So if you somehow managed to miss us in the last, 12 years or whatever it is, I'm pretty sure you'll find us this time around. And we definitely hope we'll see you. And it's a big upgrade for us, and we're definitely looking forward to getting back there. So hope to see you then. And with that, we're going to let you go back to whatever it was you were doing before you started listening to the show. Have a great week. Hope you'll tune in next time for our deep dive episode. And with that, we're out of here. This has been episode number 575, the 128th edition of The Weekender here on Linux in the Ham Shack. And I'm Russ, K5TUX.
I'm Cheryl, W5MOO.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954776469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.